He didn't just walk away. He walked away from his own blood. Those words echoed in Mia Carter's mind every night, long after the sound of the slamming door faded. She remembered it too vividly. The night Ethan Steele, the man who once swore he loved her more than anything, stood in their living room with his suitcase packed. No explanations. No warmth. Just a cold, sharp silence that sliced straight into her heart. Mia stood there, barefoot on the cold wooden floor, her oversized t-shirt stretching awkwardly over her pregnant belly. Her hands trembled as she reached for him, desperate, confused, terrified. "Ethan, please," she whispered, voice cracking. "If not for me, then stay for our baby." Ethan wouldn't meet her eyes. He stared at the ground like the truth might shatter him if he looked at her. His jaw tightened. His fingers clenched around the suitcase handle. And then he walked past her, without a word, without a goodbye. His footsteps echoed down the apartment hallway. Slow, heavy, final. Mia waited for the door to open again. She waited for him to come back in, to say he was sorry, to say he didn't mean it, to say anything. She waited until her legs gave out, and she slid onto the floor, sobbing into her hands. But the door never opened again. For weeks, she didn't sleep. She barely ate. She spent nights holding her belly, whispering to her unborn child, telling him everything would be okay even when she didn't believe it. She replayed every moment with Ethan, searching for a reason. Had she loved him too much? Not enough. Did the baby scare him? Was she too much responsibility? Not enough for his billionaire lifestyle. Nothing made sense. Before Ethan left, he was gentle, loving, the kind of man who'd bring her soup when she was sick, who'd kiss her forehead without being asked, who'd talk about their future like it was already written in the stars. She never saw any sign he was pulling away. But overnight, he became a stranger. A ghost. Someone she didn't recognize. Slowly, with each passing day, Mia forced herself upright, forced herself to work, forced herself to breathe, forced herself to remember she wasn't alone. She was carrying a life inside her, a life she would protect with everything she had. Months crawled by. Her belly grew. Her strength grew with it. And then, on a cold winter morning, her world changed again. Her contractions started early, too early, sending a wave of fear through her. She rushed to the hospital alone, gripping the railing in the taxi as she prayed her baby would survive. Hours later, Noah entered the world. Her son, her perfect, tiny miracle. But he didn't cry. Not even a whimper. Mia's entire body went numb as nurses suddenly swarmed around him. She tried to sit up, to reach out, to beg them not to take him. But her voice cracked and her vision blurred. What's happening? Why isn't he crying? Why? Ma'am, please stay calm, a nurse said quickly before rushing Noah away. Those seconds felt like years. Those minutes felt like a lifetime. Mia didn't even get to hold him. 2 hours later, she lay in her hospital bed, her chest heavy, her arms aching to feel her child close. She stared at the empty bassinet beside her. It felt like a cruel joke, a reminder of what she didn't have. Then the door opened. A doctor walked in slowly and sat beside her. His eyes were gentle, but his expression made her stomach twist. "Mia," he said softly, "we need to talk about your baby." Her breath caught. Is he alive?" "Yes," the doctor nodded. "But he's very sick." Her heart dropped. He continued, "Your baby has a rare genetic condition. His body isn't producing enough blood cells. Without immediate intervention, he won't be able to survive." Mia's entire world spun. She gripped the blanket so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Please," she whispered, "tell me what I can do." The doctor swallowed. "There's a way to save him. He needs a compatible donor, someone whose blood can support his system until we begin long-term treatment." "I'll do it," she said instantly. "Take my blood, whatever he needs." The doctor gently shook his head. "You're not a match." Her heart cracked. "Then who?" she demanded. "Please tell me who." The doctor hesitated for a long moment before finally speaking. "His father." Mia stared at him, frozen. "His father. He has the closest genetic compatibility. His blood can save your son. Without it," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Tears spilled down Mia's cheeks uncontrollably. The man who left her, who abandoned their family, who didn't look back, was now the only person who could save her child. But she had no idea where Ethan Steele even was. No address. No phone number. No way to contact him. He was gone. And her baby was dying. Mia pulled the blanket to her chest, shaking, sobbing, begging fate for one more chance. She had survived heartbreak. She had survived abandonment. But losing her son? She couldn't survive that. Not ever. For 2 days straight, Mia refused to leave Noah's bedside. The cold hospital air felt like it seeped into her bones, but she didn't care. She stayed planted in that uncomfortable blue chair, leaning over the tiny incubator where her son lay connected to more tubes and wires than any newborn should ever need. Machines beeped around him in slow, rhythmic pulses. Each beep felt like a warning. Each beep felt like a countdown. Each beep felt like time slipping away. Noah's chest rose just barely, soft, weak breaths that terrified her every second. She pressed her forehead against the incubator, whispering broken prayers she wasn't even sure she believed in. Please hold on. Please, baby. Mommy's here. I'm not going anywhere. But on the second night, when Noah's monitor spiked and a wave of nurses rushed in, Mia broke. She clutched Noah's tiny hand, so small it barely wrapped around her finger, and she felt her heart collapsing under its own weight. I can't lose him, she whispered, tears dripping onto the blanket. I'll find Ethan, even if it's the last thing I do. It wasn't bravery. It wasn't anger. It was desperation, the kind only a mother staring at death could ever understand. With only a few $100s in her purse, hair unwashed, and exhaustion shadowing her eyes, Mia stepped out of the hospital and into the cold city night. She went first to the place she once called home, Ethan's penthouse. The same penthouse where he kissed her against the kitchen counter and promised they'd decorate the nursery together. Now, the gold elevator doors opened to silence. She knocked. No answer. She pressed her forehead to the cold metal handle, praying she'd hear footsteps. Nothing. A neighbor peeked their head out. Sweetheart, no one's lived there for months. Her stomach dropped. Next, she took a bus across town to Steele Enterprises, the towering glass building where Ethan practically grew up. Security stopped her at the front desk. I need to see Ethan Steele, she said, breathing hard. The guard frowned. Mr. Steele isn't here. Then where is he? She snapped. Ma'am, he sighed. He hasn't been in this building since he stepped down. She blinked. Step down? Ethan. He would never. But the man shrugged. I just work here. Her knees wobbled. Ethan didn't step down from anything. Ethan was born to run that empire. Why would he leave everything? She shook herself and pushed on. She went from bar to bar, apartment to apartment, tracking down his old friends. Men who once called her family, who laughed with Ethan over brandy and billion-dollar deals. Now they couldn't even meet her eyes. We haven't seen him, one said stiffly. He vanished, another muttered. He cut off everyone, a third shrugged. It was like Ethan Steele had been erased from the world. Every rejection felt like a slap. Every dead end pushed her closer to collapse. By the time night fell again, Mia was dragging her feet through the freezing streets, her breath fogging the air, her fingers numb from cold and grief. She kept replaying the doctor's words. Without his father's blood, Noah won't survive. Her baby's life was slipping through her fingers, and the man who could save him had turned into a ghost. It happened when she least expected it. Her legs were shaking, her vision blurry from exhaustion, when a black SUV rolled up beside her. Slow, silent, expensive. The tinted window slid down with a soft mechanical hum. Mia froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs. There he was, Ethan Steele. Only he wasn't the man she remembered. He looked different. Sharper. Harder. His jaw was unshaven, his eyes sunken with shadows, his clothes immaculate, yet somehow worn with stress. But when he saw her, really saw her, his entire expression cracked open. Mia, he breathed, stepping out into the cold air. What happened? Why are you? She didn't let him finish. Everything she'd held back came crashing out. The fear, the anger, the heartbreak. You left me. she choked. And your son is dying. Ethan stopped dead. The world around them went silent. My what? He whispered, voice breaking. You heard me, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Your son, Noah, and you are the only match. He needs you. Not your money. Not your name. Your blood. Shock flooded Ethan's face. His jaw trembled. His eyes flickered with a pain she didn't understand. A pain deeper than guilt. Mia, he whispered. Please, she said, voice collapsing into a sob. If you ever cared about me, even for a second, save him. Ethan didn't move. Not for a long, terrifying moment. She watched his expression shift. Confusion, agony, fear. And she braced herself for the familiar pain of him turning away. For him to walk. Just like last time. Just like always. But then, very slowly, Ethan's posture changed. His shoulders sagged. His jaw loosened. His eyes filled with something raw and broken. He stepped closer, voice trembling. Take me to him. Mia stared at him, breath stuck in her throat. For the first time, she saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't running from her. He wasn't running from responsibility. He was running from something far darker. And now he was done running. The automatic doors to the ICU slid open with a soft hiss, and Ethan stepped inside like a man walking into a storm he'd been running from for far too long. The moment his eyes landed on the incubator, his breath vanished. Noah looked impossibly small. Too still. Too fragile. Tiny tubes covered his arms and chest. Oxygen lines wrapped around his face, and the soft beeping of the monitors filled the room like an urgent heartbeat. Ethan stopped dead. His shoulders caved inward, his chest rising in a shaky breath. For a moment, Mia thought he might collapse. She reached out, instinctively grabbing his arm. Careful, she whispered. But Ethan barely heard her. His eyes were locked on Noah, their son, the tiny life he never knew he'd already fallen in love with. A sound slipped from his throat. Not a word, not a gasp, just pain. Raw, gut deep, unmasked. Mia had never seen him like that, not even on the day he left her. Ethan took another step closer, almost in slow motion, like he was afraid Noah would break, just from him being near. He's so small, he whispered, voice cracking. God, Mia, so small. He's fighting, she said softly, but he can't fight forever without help. Doctors moved around them, preparing the transfusion, gloves snapping, equipment clicking, hushed conversations filling the room. But for Ethan, time had stopped. His fingers hovered over the glass wall of the incubator, trembling. That's my son, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Yes, Mia said. He is. A tear slid down Ethan's cheek before he could stop it. As the doctors continued setting up, Mia stood close enough to hear every breath Ethan took. Short, sharp, almost painful. She had waited months, hurt for months, cried for months. But now she needed answers. Not someday. Not when things calmed down. Now. Ethan, she said softly, her voice barely steady. Why did you leave me? He didn't respond. She tried again, louder this time. Why did you disappear? Still nothing. Why, she whispered, tears burning her eyes. Why did you abandon us? The word abandon made Ethan flinch, like she had struck him. He closed his eyes. Mia, I didn't abandon you. She felt anger rising, sharp and hot. You walked out on me when I was pregnant. I know, he cut in, voice low and tortured. And every day since then, I've regretted it. Then why did you do it? She cried. Why break me like that? Why leave me to go through everything alone? Ethan opened his eyes slowly, and for the first time, Mia saw fear in them. Real fear. My family, he said quietly. They threatened you. Mia blinked, stunned. What? Ethan looked away, fists clenched at his sides, as if he were holding back an entire storm. My father, he said, voice tight. He found out about you. About the baby. And he told me if I didn't end things immediately, he would destroy you. Mia's stomach twisted. Destroy me? How? Your career. Your future. Ethan said bitterly. Everything. He said he would bury you the way he buries anyone who becomes a liability. Mia stared at him in disbelief. You didn't tell me. I couldn't, he said sharply. You don't know what world you were walking into, Mia. The Steel Empire isn't built on money. It's built on leverage, on control, on enemies who strike where it hurts. He ran a shaking hand through his hair. You were innocent. You didn't deserve to be caught in that. Mia felt tears spill down her cheeks silently. So you left to protect me, she whispered. Ethan nodded. I thought if I disappeared, they'd lose interest. If I pretended you didn't matter to me, no one would touch you. Mia shook her head in disbelief. You should have told me, Ethan. We could have faced it together. He laughed bitterly, a broken, shattered sound. I know, he whispered. God, I know. I thought I was being noble. Thought I was saving you. But all I did was hurt you. Hurt our child. Hurt myself. He finally looked at her, and the emotion in his eyes nearly knocked all the anger out of her. Regret, guilt, love. So much love it frightened her. I never stopped loving you, Mia, he said softly. Not for a single moment. Her breath caught. Those were the words she waited months to hear. The words she prayed for at night. The words she thought she'd never hear again. But before she could respond, the doctor stepped into the room. Mr. Steele, the doctor said gently. We're ready for the transfusion. Ethan jerked his head up, wiping at his eyes quickly. Well, will it help him? He asked, almost afraid of the answer. It's his best chance, the doctor said. We can't wait. Ethan took one last look at Noah, long, deep, memorizing every detail of his tiny face. Then he cupped a hand against the glass incubator, voice barely above a whisper. I'm here, son. Daddy's here. His voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Mia pressed a shaky hand to her mouth as more tears fell. For the first time, she wasn't crying from pain, but from the rawness of seeing Ethan choose their child with everything he had. The doctor nodded toward the door. This way. Ethan straightened, wiped his face again, and took a deep breath. The breath of a man ready to step into fire. Without hesitation, he followed the doctor inside the procedure room. Mia watched him disappear beyond the door, and in that moment, she realized something. Ethan hadn't stopped loving her. He hadn't stopped caring. He had been drowning in a world darker than she understood. And now, despite the danger, despite the past, despite the pain, he was here. For her. For Noah. For the family he once gave up everything to protect. Hours passed like years. The harsh fluorescent lights above flickered softly, while Mia paced back and forth along the ICU hallway. Her legs felt numb, but she couldn't sit. Not when Noah's tiny life depended on what was happening behind those doors. Not when Ethan, the man she once loved and the man who broke her heart, was on the other side of the wall, giving his own blood to save a child he had never held. Every step Mia took echoed through the empty corridor. Every echo felt like another second slipping away, another reminder of the fear suffocating her. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Fingers curled tightly together as she whispered prayers under her breath. Please, please let them both be okay. She didn't just fear losing Noah. She feared losing Ethan too again. And this time, it would be permanent. She closed her eyes, leaning her forehead against the cold wall, letting the tears fall silently. How did life twist so harshly? How did love turn into heartbreak, then into a life-and-death fight in a hospital? She didn't know. All she knew was that her baby needed his father, and she needed answers, real answers, not secrets or sacrifices made behind her back. Footsteps approached. Mia spun around instantly, her heart slamming against her ribs. A doctor stood there, still wearing his mask, but his eyes were soft, relieved. Mia, he asked gently. Her breath caught. Yes. The doctor pulled the mask off and managed a small, comforting smile. The procedure worked. Your baby is stabilizing. Mia let out a choked sob as her knees buckled. The doctor reached out quickly, steadying her shoulder until she found her balance again. He's responding better than we expected, the doctor continued. The next few hours are still important, but he's fighting, and the transfusion gave him the strength he needed. Mia covered her face, tears streaming freely. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Don't thank me, the doctor said with a warm nod toward the hallway behind him. Thank his father. Mia turned, And there he was. Ethan appeared from the corner, walking slowly. He was pale, painfully pale, and his steps weren't steady. But he was standing. He had given his strength, his blood, and almost certainly his heart. When he saw Mia crying, he hesitated, unsure if he had the right to comfort her, unsure if she even wanted him near. But she didn't move away. She took one shaky step toward him. "You saved him," she whispered. Ethan swallowed hard. His voice was rough, exhausted, raw. "Our son," he corrected quietly. The words hit her like sunlight breaking through a storm, warm, gentle, unexpected. Their son, not hers alone, not something he ran from, not a responsibility he was forced into, but family, blood, connection. Mia felt her heart tighten painfully in her chest. "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered suddenly. "For everything. For leaving you. For disappearing. For making you think you were alone. God, Mia, you were never alone to me." She blinked rapidly, confused and overwhelmed. "Ethan, you left without a word." He nodded, shame filling his eyes. "I know. And if I could go back in time, I would do everything differently. I would fight for you. For us. For him." His voice trembled. "But I can't change the past. I can only try to fix the future." He sat on a chair in the waiting room, leaning forward, elbows on his knees, as though the weight of everything he'd been carrying was finally too much. Mia sat beside him, her body still tense, her hands still shaking. Silence stretched between them, not cold, not angry, but fragile. Ethan finally turned his head toward her. "I want to be part of his life," he said softly. "And yours, if you'll allow it. I want to show you that I'm not the man who walked away. Not anymore. No more running. No more secrets. I'm done letting fear make my choices." Tears welled up again in Mia's eyes. "Ethan, I don't know if I can trust you again." He didn't flinch. "Not this time. I'll earn it," he said immediately. "Every single day. For as long as it takes." Mia stared at him, at the sincerity etched into every line of his face, at the exhaustion that proved he didn't simply give blood. He gave everything he had left. She thought of the nights she cried alone, the months she feared she wasn't enough, the endless questions of why he had abandoned her. But now she also saw the truth. He had been fighting a different battle, a battle he thought he needed to fight alone to protect her. It didn't erase the pain, but it revealed the love underneath it. Just then, a nurse stepped out of the ICU. "You can see him now," she said gently. "Both of you." Mia stood first. Ethan hesitated. She extended her hand toward him. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but a bridge. He stared at her hand for a long moment, then slowly took it. Her fingers closed around his, warm and unsure but real. Together, they walked toward the ICU door. Not as a broken couple, not as strangers, not as enemies of circumstance, but as two parents stepping toward the child who needed them both, and perhaps toward a future neither of them thought possible anymore. For the first time in months, Mia felt hope. For the first time in years, Ethan felt like he wasn't alone. And for the first time in his fragile little life, Noah had both of his parents walking toward him, together. Days later, the world inside Noah's hospital room shifted, gently, quietly, almost miraculously. For the first time since the emergency, Noah opened his eyes. It was small at first, a faint flutter, barely visible. Then another, and suddenly his soft brown eyes blinked up at the ceiling, full of life, fragile but real. Mia gasped and leaned forward immediately, grabbing his tiny hand with both of hers. "Noah," she whispered, voice trembling. "Baby, you're okay. You're really okay." His fingers curled weakly around hers, like he recognized her touch even in the haze of recovery. The warmth of that small grip traveled straight into her heart, filling spaces that had been cold and frightened for too long. Across the bed, Ethan stood frozen, breath caught in his throat. He had been there every day, helping nurses, signing forms, waiting beside Mia even when she didn't look at him. But seeing Noah wake, that was something entirely different. He stepped closer, slowly, as if approaching something sacred. "Noah," he whispered, voice cracking. "Hey, little man. I'm your dad." The words were soft, but they carried years of regret, love, and longing. Noah blinked up at him, weak, confused, but responsive. His eyes drifted toward Ethan's voice, and when they met his father's face, something inside Ethan shattered in the most healing way. His shoulders shook. Tears slipped down his cheeks, not the silent, hidden kind he'd swallowed his whole life, but raw, open, cleansing tears. He didn't turn away. He didn't wipe them. He let them fall. Because for the first time, he felt like he didn't need to be the cold billionaire or the controlled steel heir. He was simply a father meeting his son. Mia watched, her own tears blurring her vision. It was impossible not to feel the emotion radiating from him. The guilt, the love, the awe. It was written all over his face. Ethan reached out slowly, pausing just inches from Noah's hand, giving him the choice. And then, Noah's tiny fingers reached toward him. Ethan choked out a quiet sob as he touched his son's hand for the very first time. The connection was instant, an unspoken promise Noah didn't understand and Ethan didn't know how to voice. Mia pressed a hand over her mouth, overwhelmed. For the first time, they were not three separate people connected by pain. They were a family connected by love. Noah's breathing steadied slightly, the machines beside him beeping in calmer rhythms. Mia stroked his head gently while Ethan remained frozen in place, terrified to move in case he broke the moment. Minutes passed quietly, tenderly. A nurse peeked in, smiled softly, and slipped out again, recognizing a scene too intimate and beautiful to interrupt. Ethan finally exhaled shakily and wiped his tears. He lifted his gaze to Mia, and for the first time since he left her months ago, he looked completely vulnerable. "Thank you," he whispered, for giving me the chance to save him and to come back. I don't deserve it, but thank you." Mia shook her head gently. "You deserve to know your son, and he deserved to know his father." She paused, her eyes softening. "And I needed the truth." Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but emotion stopped him. He swallowed, eyes filled with remorse and love. "I should have told you everything from the start," he said quietly. "I thought leaving you was protecting you, but all I did was hurt the person I loved most." Mia's breath caught slightly at the word loved, but she didn't look away. He continued, voice low and honest. "I regret every day I stayed silent, but I promise no more secrets, no more walls. Not with you, not with him." Mia stepped closer, the distance between them smaller than it had been in months. She gently touched his arm, a small gesture, but to Ethan, it felt like forgiveness. Maybe not fully, maybe not immediately, but it was a beginning. You could almost feel the shift in the room, a softening, a healing, the feeling of two hearts finally starting to beat in the same rhythm again. Noah let out a tiny sound, a weak whimper, and both parents leaned in instinctively, hands touching for a moment as they reached to comfort their child. Their eyes met above Noah's crib, and in that glance, something unspoken passed between them. Not romance, not reunion, not promises, but possibility. A second chance, not forced, not rushed, but earned. Slowly, steadily, naturally. Hours later, as the sun set through the window, painting the room in soft gold, the three of them stood together. Mia on the left, Ethan on the right, Noah in the middle, breathing, recovering, living. Mia felt peace settle into her chest, something she hadn't felt in a long time. "Ethan," she said softly, "you saved more than him today." He frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "You saved all of us," she whispered. "You gave us a chance to be a family again." Ethan's voice caught. "I want that more than anything." Mia smiled, tired, teary, but genuine. "Then stay. Stay for him. Stay for me. Stay because you want to, not because you feel guilty." Ethan nodded. "I'm not leaving again." Noah smiling weakly, tiny fingers curled around Mia's hand. Mia standing beside him, finally breathing without fear. Ethan beside them both, holding the family he almost lost, the family he's determined to protect now. Some love stories break. Some love stories hurt. But some love stories, the rare ones, find their way back with more strength than before. Because sometimes love doesn't return the way we expect. Sometimes it returns exactly when we need it the most. Thank you for watching the story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Tell me, should Mia give Ethan a second chance? I'd love to read your thoughts.